start with outcome 3. Sorry, Secretary, I can't quite hear you. I don't think your microphone's on.
Can I make one small correction before we go to outcome 3?
You absolutely can.
Thank you. So the IMI team testified before that we had 343 involuntary removals from detention between 1 July 2025 and 30 September 2025. In fact, the majority were voluntary, 911, and 32 were involuntary.
Thank you for that clarification, Secretary. We will proceed to questions and start with Senator Dunigan.
Thanks, Chair. I want to go to the issue of illicit tobacco, the scourge that's plaguing the nation, sadly, and if I can just to get a bit of an understanding of where things are at today, do we have an understanding of what share of Australia's total tobacco consumption is currently represented by illicit tobacco, or sales rather than consumption? Hello.
Thank you, Senator. Amber Shahida, Illicit Tobacco and E-Cigarette Commissioner. I am aware of reports that range between 25% and 65% as the illicit market share. I am yet to finalise my advice to government.
How are you going? Sorry, Commissioner. Sorry, were you continuing?
Oh no, I was just finishing that sentence.
How are you going about finalising that advice to government? How are you going to deduce exactly what or as best you can, the number?
We've developed a new methodology in terms of bringing together some public and private data from around the country, looking at a range of things in terms of wastewater analysis, in terms of legal clearances, in terms of consumption rates from AIHW surveys, looking at seizures and enforcement activities around the country. We've had that methodology validated by Charles Sturt University. It has gone through a period of robust quality assurance because I'm taking this really seriously. It's the first time that we've been able to bring together a national reporting picture on the issue.
Yes, okay. Just going on, well, I should ask, in terms of that methodology, is it a methodology that's been replicated elsewhere in the world, or a similar version? Has anyone else had to deploy an approach to understanding what the number is of or the quantum of illicit tobacco consumption in their jurisdiction?
No, not the methodology we are using, and different countries are looking to us in terms of being informed for their future reporting. Around the world, a lot of studies use empty package surveys, which is taking a sample of what cigarette packages are being found and being able to determine what share the illicit market sales have been.
Okay. In terms of your liaison with state and territory counterparts or colleagues, I know there's not a direct equivalent to your position in state and territory governments, but I just wonder, have you sort of got a sense from them about the data that they have with regard to the proliferation of illicit tobacco sales and consumption in their states and territories?
Yes, we've arranged formal information sharing and data sharing arrangements with states and territories. So the data that I am reporting on includes contributions from states and territories.
Okay. How many times have you met with the Minister since your appointment as Commissioner?
I'll just get that for you. I've met with Minister Burke 6 times.
Okay, very good. And what was the last date on which you met personally with the Minister?
Yesterday, the 1st of December 2025.
Okay, and has the Minister asked you for a set of priority actions that you felt are needed to address the issue as part of your meetings?
My observation, Senator, observing the meetings between Ms Shahuta and the Minister, which I often do, is that is a constant refrain of the Ministers. So whenever presented with additional evidence or data, he always goes to what are the actions that we can take in response to that.
So the Minister, on that basis, has asked you constantly for a set of priority actions to be taken?
Yes, I was trying to determine the right way of answering that question because it's not it's quite an agile conversation, as Secretary Foster was talking about.
Okay, so what priorities have you specified then to be taken in your conversations with the Minister?
The priorities that I'm focused on is supporting intergovernmental responses to the complex issue, looking at how we increase cooperation and collaboration between multiple agencies across the supply and demand chain, and looking at hardening the environment against illicit actors.
And specifically, I mean, those are admirable aims in terms of hardening the environment against those who seek to break the law and do as they do. Have we got specific actions that have been recommended through these conversations with the Minister?
I think a lot of those actions are subject to Cabinet consideration and processes. That's not something for me to table here publicly.
Okay.
Senator, it might be helpful. Obviously, Ms Shahuta is operating at a whole of government level, but the Commissioner and his team have some very specific initiatives and actions underway that they've agreed over time with the Minister. So I think that would augment Ms Shahuta's answer.
Well, Commissioner Reynolds, if you'd like to add to the work that ABF's doing, which is very good, I must say, but yes, if you want to go through that, that would be helpful.
Senator, we've been extremely busy over the last year and a half in particular, and during the financial year we had a 38% increase in the quanta of illicit tobacco that we've picked up on the border. Over 2.5 billion cigarettes were interdicted, over 439 tonnes of loose leaf tobacco were interdicted, and that's valued at over $4.4 billion in tobacco excise duty tax that would have been evaded if we'd not picked it up on the border. But of course, it's not just on the border. We're also working with our international partners to disrupt the illicit tobacco trade before it gets to Australia. So it's pre the border, it's at the border, and post the border with the newly established National Disruption Group.
So then we'll come back to the disruption group. I wonder, between officials at the table, how much of the Commonwealth funding allocation provided for tackling illegal tobacco has been spent to date?
I can say, Senator, that the ABF received funding of $188.5 million in financial year 23-24, and I just asked Deputy Commissioner Smith to join me at the table to see if we have the funding figure for how much of that has been used to date.
Sure thing. And in doing so, perhaps, Deputy Commissioner, if there are specific projects against which that expenditure has occurred, that would be helpful to outline as well.
Senator Tony Smith, Acting Deputy Commissioner, National Operations, Australian Border Force. As the Commissioner mentioned before, the Australian Border Force received $188.5 million of funding in 23-24 financial year, and that funding commenced in January 2024. Part of that funding was split between offshore, onshore and partnering with state and territories as well. From a offshore perspective, we've used our funding to be able to allocate liaison officers offshore. So we've had 3 offshore liaison officers for tobacco being appointed to London, to Bangkok and also to Hong Kong. And we have our 4th liaison that will be commencing shortly. We've increased our number of resources at our frontline out of that initial funding pool, and also provided into enabling services such as intelligence in terms of our contract management with unpacks, transport, storage, destruction of illicit tobacco as well at the same time. The specific figures I don't have with me, Senator, so I'll have to take that on notice.
On notice is fine. I'm being told to move on.
Thank you, Senator Dunningham. And I will advise those of you who are in the gallery that it is not allowed to take photographs of committee proceedings without the express permission of the committee. Thank you very much. Senator Shoebridge.
Thanks, Chair. I think you gave some answers to Senator Dunningham about the trust payments to Nauru under the New Deal and the status of the trust deed and the trust committee. We just might return to some of that territory.
Certainly, Senator. We'll just get the right officers up.
While the officers are coming, I understand there's been a payment. The first payment of $20 million has been made to Nauru under the new, call it 2025 deal.
That's correct, Senator.
And then there have been some other payments made, which are the visa fees that Nauru charges, which, as I understand it, it's $30,000 a pop that's paid for those visa fees as an upfront payment for a 30-year visa. Is that right?
That's also correct.
Are they the only payments that have been made pursuant to the 2025 deal, the new deal?
Yes, that's correct, Senator.
All right. Now, did who was the $20 million paid to?
Senator, to the Government of Nauru.
All right. So that's not part of the trust payment.
That's correct.
Yep. And what was the $20 million for?
It's the costs associated with the initial start-up, effectively, of the third country reception arrangement, recognising the expenditure that the Government of Nauru needs to make in order to establish the arrangement.
So what's been delivered for the $20 million?
Senator, as we've outlined before, this isn't a procurement for services. This is an arrangement whereby Australia has committed to providing Nauru with an initial payment. Nauru has agreed to take individuals, grant them a 30-year visa and treat them as members of the Nauruan community. In terms of services that Nauru will provide those individuals, they'll have access to healthcare, they'll have work rights, they will live, in effect, as a Nauruan in Nauru. They'll have, access to travel documents, should they so wish, that sort of thing. It's not the right way to think of the arrangement as a sort of procurement where we pay an amount of money and we get a prescriptive service offering.
But isn't part of the deal to make an annual payment as well, which I had understood was for the healthcare, for those other services, the annual payment. But is that not what the annual payment is for?
Absolutely, we are providing funds to Nauru because we recognise they will incur costs in terms of additional health costs and upgrading their services. And so absolutely, but I guess what I'm saying is it's not as though we're giving them the money to upgrade the hospital and the only people who use the hospital are the people transferred under this arrangement. It's a general uplift in service capability on Nauru that is intended to benefit these individuals, but will be services that can be accessed by others on Nauru.
Australia's made billions and billions of dollars of payments to Nauru. It hasn't uplifted their health services yet. So what's the $20 million for? Is it to uplift health services or is it just a sweetener?
Senator, it's the first payment of a series of payments which are designed to assist Nauru to uplift the services that it needs to support the people being transferred there. So, as Ms Sharp said, it's not a transactional, we'll give you this amount of money for this ward in this hospital. It's about actually assisting them to upgrade the services for the transferees and for their own population.
Well, do they have any obligations to do anything specific with the $20 million? Are they obliged to spend it on uplifting services? Is that contained in the MOU?
Senator, it's not drafted in a way that you would see in, say, a contract for services.
So it is just a sweetener. It's just a $20 million
Nauru's made
sweetener.
a series of commitments, both in the MOU and in the long-term stay visa regulations, about the conditions, that the fact that people will be provided with accommodation, that they will have access to healthcare, they'll have access to education services and the like, and to support their ability to do that, the Australian government is making some payments, but we're not prescribing as a sovereign nation for them how exactly they do it.
As I understand it, I would call that a sweetener. Like you just sweeten the deal. You just give them $20 million to get them to sign. It's like a sign-on bonus. Sweetener, is that what it is? The 20 million?
You can characterise it however
you
want.
Tell me how I'm wrong.
No.
Tell me how I'm wrong, Minister.
We know you're trying to get a social media clip.
No, I'm trying to work out what $20 million of public money is going.
You can characterise it however you want. The officials have explained it to you. We're not going to play your games.
Well, Minister, what does Australia get for the $20 million?
The officials have explained that to you.
Well, so far we've been told it's not a fee for service. There's nothing prescriptive. There's no actual legal obligation on Nauru to produce anything for that $20 million. Is that right, Ms Sharp?
Senator, it's the first payment to enable Nauru to start to uplift its services consistent with the commitments they've made for the services that will be provided to the people who transfer there.
Is there any legal obligation on Nauru to spend that money on uplifting services?
Senator, we've answered that question.
Well, I think you've answered it by no, is how I understand you've answered it. There is no legal obligation on them to spend it on anything in particular. They can choose as a sovereign nation to spend the $20 million however they choose.
They have made a commitment, Senator, to uplift their services.
But I'm asking about what, the nurse working in Wagga who's been paying taxes all this year and has paid, $15,000 in taxes, or the teacher in Western Sydney who's paid $25,000 in taxes to the Commonwealth Government. You've given that money to Nauru, and I'm asking what the Australian public gets in return for it. What do we get in return?
And we've answered that question, Senator, that we have nothing to add to our evidence.
All right. There currently is no trust deed, is that right?
Sorry?
There is no trust deed?
So, Senator, the trust MOU has been signed. It exists as a document. What is yet to occur is the payment of funds into the trust account.
So when did the trust MOU or the trust document get signed?
The trust MOU was signed on the 21st of October 2025.
And I assume Home Affairs has a copy of it?
Correct.
All right. Can I just show you this document? That if I've given a copy to Jana. You have my spare copy? Yes.
The officials may, I can see this is a two-page document that you're asking officials to respond to. They may take a little bit of time to have a look at it.
Well, I'll try and assist.
No. Let them have an opportunity to read the documents before you start bombarding them with questions.
By all means can read the rest of it. I'll show them the relevant points. I'm going to ask a question about this document.
Point of order.
Yes.
If a senator is going to table what looks now like a 4-page document and ask questions, the official should have an opportunity to review that document before taking questions on it. It's Senator Shoebridge who decided to hold the tabling of that document until now. The officials should have an opportunity, and then when they're ready to answer questions...
I mean, I decided to.
Well, I
This is
think.
the only time
Sorry, can I respond to the point of order?
Ridiculous.
Can I respond to the point of order? I think it is reasonable for the official to take a second to have a look at the document that you've tabled. So if we can give the official a second to do that before you ask.
But just to be clear, what I've provided, Chair, for those who might be watching along, it's an FOI decision from the Department of Home Affairs in response to an FOI request that was put in by Stephanie Tran at Michael West Media. It's dated the 29th of October, and the request for the FOI was for the Memorandum of Understanding between Australia and Nauru entered into on 29 August 2025, and for the trust deed setting out the financial arrangements for the MOU. That's what this is.
Thank you for stepping through that. Senator Shoebridge. And it looks like the officials are ready to answer your questions.
Because they would have seen a million of these, perhaps unlike the Minister.
Additional comments aren't welcome, Senator.
Indeed. Could I take you... So the scope of the request was, you'll see on page 1. It's as I've just said. The second part of the request was for a trust deed setting out the financial arrangements for the MOU. The decision that was made on the 29th of October, now this is 8 days, I think, after the trust document was signed with Nauru. The decision is to refuse Part 2 of the request as no discrete document exists. Well, that just wasn't true, was it? Because the trust deed setting out the arrangements for the MOU that you've just confirmed was signed on the 21st of October.
Senator, the document that was signed on the 21st of October was an MOU. It wasn't a trust deed in the sense of a deed, sorry to get particularly legal, but it wasn't a deed settling the trust. It was an MOU for the arrangement for the trust.
So there's no trust deed for the trust? Is this the document that establishes the trust?
That's correct, Senator. The document that establishes the trust is an MOU.
Well, you may describe it as an MOU, but at law, a document that establishes a trust is known as a deed. Is that really the basis upon which you said no such document exists, even though you'd signed a trust MOU which establishes a trust 8 days before not only refusing to provide the document, but telling Stephanie Tran from Michael West Media that you refuse Part 2 of your request as no discrete document exists. We're just playing semantics about trust MOU or trust deed. Is that what happened here? Is that how the department answers MOU, Secretary? They play that kind of semantics to avoid the production of a document that's obviously been sought?
Part of this was to do with the fact that the searches are conducted as at the date that the request is received, which is set out at the top of page 3 of this letter. And apologies, I didn't get that far in before where at that point in time, on the 19th of September, when the FOI request was received, there was no such trust deed or MOU in existence.
Well, but the decision is made on the 29th of October. At the time the decision is made and the statement is made that no discrete document exists, it wasn't that no discrete document existed. The statement is no discrete document exists, as at the 29th of October.
No, Senator, I think the document that you've given us actually says no documents were in the possession of the department on 19th September 2025 when your FOI request was received. So it was accurately stating the position that had been taken.
Point 5 says the decision in relation to the document in the possession of the department falls within scope of Part 1 of your request is as follows. Exempt 1 document, blah, refuse Part 2 of the request as no discrete document exists. That's what it says on page 2.
Yes, Senator, but it clearly explains at the top of page 3 that was on 19th September.
Will you produce to this committee the document that you now describe as a trust MOU?
Senator, we'll take that on notice and check it for sensitivity.
Thank you. That seems like a good point at which to rotate the call. Senator Roberts, you have the call.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for appearing today. My questions are about illicit tobacco and e-cigarette. Commissioner. She here?
Yes, Senator, we'll just get the right officers up to the table for you.
Thank you.
And so it will be a combination of the ITEC Commissioner and the ABF Commissioner.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. The budget allocated $156.7 million over 2 years from 2025-26 to expand programs to tackle the illicit tobacco trade. What programs are they, please?
I think I might defer that to the ABF Commissioner. That money was referred to... Sorry. There are two amounts of money. Could you just repeat the budget year that you were referring to?
$156.7 million over 2 years from 2025-26 to expand programs to tackle
Yes, I can go through the number of agencies that have that. Sorry, I was thinking about the previous budget year, which went to ABF. Just let me get that list for you. So $49.4 million went to the Australian Federal Police to expand the Criminal Assets Confiscation Task Force. $7 million went to support the Australian Border Force to utilise emerging technology to screen and detect more illicit tobacco at our borders. $19.9 million went to fund my office, the Illicit Tobacco and E-Cigarette Commissioner's Office. $1.4 million went to establish a new international collaboration for regional assessment of criminal network behaviours. That's where we've engaged the UN Office of Drug Control to conduct an Asia-Pacific regional threat assessment. $40 million went to support states and territories to establish local level capability. $31.6 million went to strengthen compliance and enforcement functions under the Public Health, Tobacco and Other Products Act 2023 and the Therapeutic Goods Act 1989. $4 million went to extend the National Tobacco and E-Cigarette Public Health Campaign to target motivations and behaviours of people who use illicit tobacco. And $3.3 million went to the Commonwealth Department of Public Prosecutions to prosecute contraventions under the Public Health Act and Therapeutic Goods Act.
Thank you. That's quite a wide net. You were allocated $19.9 million, as you said, of this money to administer your office. What is that being spent on?
So that's being spent on the functions that my office was set up to deliver under the Public Health, Tobacco and Other Products Act. That includes activities that support intergovernmental governance functions, that support national strategy development and implementation, that support reporting on the size and consequence of the illicit market, and support advice on new laws.
Thank you.
It is staffing to undertake those functions.
How many staff do you have? Full-time equivalents?
We are budgeted for 24 full-time equivalents at the moment. We have 12 APS staff, and we are undertaking a recruitment process to fill the vacancies and have a number of contractors on board to assist with those functions.
Thank you. How do the taxpayers know this cost is justified by the outcomes it generates? Have you got KPIs?
I have reporting obligations under the legislation.
What are your KPIs under the legislation?
So I have to report on all enforcement actions and consequences undertaken in the last financial year and the size and nature of the illicit market, so we can monitor that year on, year out, and also on excise and customs equivalent duties evaded.
So you can track your effectiveness?
That should be able to assist us monitor the intergovernmental activities that are responding to this issue.
How do you know whether or not you are being effective?
It's a good question, Senator. My role is to enhance intergovernmental cooperation, coordination, to bring the efforts together across states and territories, across portfolios and across multiple points of the supply and demand chain. The value add that the office brings is to support that force multiplication effect instead of all of the separate agencies working separately.
I'll just make a comment that with the AFP there, I would have thought they would be better equipped, knowing their expertise in criminology or encountering criminology, to do that. But you have a starting point, or do you have a starting point for your own measure of success? How many illegal cigarettes entered Australia in the last 12 months?
I think the ABF might have that data in terms of cigarettes that you've seized coming into the border.
So, Senator Gav Reynolds, Commissioner of the Australian Border Force, just to give an indication of how much we interdicted on the border, we interdicted 2.5 billion sticks of cigarette during the financial year 24-25. We also interdicted over 439 tonnes of loose leaf tobacco, and we interdicted 6 million vape devices and accessories during that financial year.
Well, that's pretty impressive figures. Do you have any idea from that, extrapolating to how many came into the country?
That is an assessment that it will be in a report provided by the ITEC Commissioner to the government.
Would it be possible to get that number on notice?
That is a matter for the government.
Minister, would it be possible to get that number on notice?
Sorry, which number again was that?
The AFP man can tell you.
No, so the Senator...
The number of cigarettes that would have come in, the number of cigarettes extrapolated from the captured cigarettes or the known cigarettes to estimate the number that would have come into the country illegally.
Well, I'll take that on notice and we'll do our best to answer that question.
Thank you.
And Senator, if I could just revert to your last question to Ms Shahuta. I think there are 2 points to make. The AFP does have an incredibly important role in this mission, but it's quite a specific role consistent with their mandate. What Ms Shahuta's role is to try and make the whole work as effectively as possible together. And I think she's got an example of the work she's doing with police forces across the jurisdictions, which will illustrate the kind of value that the office can add.
And Senator, may I also add that the Australian Federal Police is a member of the National Disruption Group, and their expertise is being used as a part of that group to break the illicit tobacco business model.
Thank you.
Just flagging final question, Senator Roberts.
In January 2024, Minister Butler announced, quote, Albanese government cracks down on illegal tobacco imports and has committed $188.5 million to crack down on the importation of illegal tobacco. It's been almost 2 years now. That's the end of the quote. It's been almost 2 years now. There must be some tangible benefit for the money. Commissioner, what reduction in the importation of illegal tobacco has resulted from this initiative so far? Bearing in mind that I know of police in Queensland, I know of good citizens in Queensland who are now seeing that the excise is so damn high, they're going to the illicit tobacco trade, including police.
So, Senator, the metrics that I mentioned before, that's a 38% increase compared to the previous financial year.
What you've interdicted.
That's correct. And I'll just provide a very quick vignette from Queensland, where just recently the Australian Border Force and the Queensland Police Service executed a series of warrants that resulted in one of the largest illicit tobacco and vape seizures in Queensland's history. The total duty evaded for the combined seizures of over 30.5 million cigarettes and 5.1 tonnes of tobacco is estimated to be over $53.8 million, with the estimated street value of over 4,000 vapes to be $20.05 million. So an extremely successful joint operation between the Australian Border Force and the Queensland Police Service.
Well, with respect, we can only assess whether it's successful or not by comparing it to the total quantity of cigarettes coming in, tobacco coming in, vapes coming in illegally and finding their way to the market. Apparently that is still huge, and it's causing crime in around Australia, with tobacconists getting firebombed.
So, Senator, the fact that we're able to conduct that successful operation, that breaks that particular criminal syndicate. It's only through breaking the criminal syndicates that we can reduce the scourge of illicit tobacco in Australia.
Some people would argue that it's only by cutting excise back to sensible levels that would break that, because people now find it's worth going to the criminals to get their tobacco.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. We'll take that as a comment. I'm rotating the call to Senator Duniam.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Well, look, I might stay with this group for the moment, and then I'll come back to the matter Senator Shoebridge was pursuing, so I'll try and do this quickly. Just on the issue of illicit tobacco, there was some funding provided to the value of roughly $20 million, $20.4 million in the 24-25 budget for a fee-for-service program, but it was later revealed that there was no legal authority to disperse those funds to the state and territory governments who were going to be providing this service. So I just want to get a sense of how we got to that situation, what process was gone through around enabling powers, and what governance and accountability framework was put in place around this situation.
So, Senator Commissioner Gavin Reynolds, I'll answer that question for you. I would just say that the legislative authority was granted following an amendment approved by the Executive Council on the 30th of October 2025. And it did take some time to work through to ensure that those funds could be dispersed legally from the Commonwealth to the states and territories, and that included a constitutional liability risk assessment to ensure that it was indeed legal.
Okay, so how long did it take for that process to work through so that funds could be dispersed in a legal way?
From the time the government announced, which would have been in January 2024, until the 30th of October 2025.
Right, so it took a year and 10 months.
That's correct.
To ensure that it was legal, that funds had been announced were actually able to be legally dispersed. But what happened for the period of time in between, the year and 10 months, before we realised that we needed to fix that up?
So, Senator, we've been extremely active with the states and territories, and what I can provide for you is that since January 2024, the Australian Border Force has worked on 28 occasions to support the states and territories with funding from the remainder of the $188.5 million provided by the government to ensure the states and territories could be supported, particularly with regards to the storage, transportation and destruction of illicit tobacco. So we've been doing a lot during that period.
So, I would never accuse you of not doing a lot, but I just wonder how it took us a year and 10 months, nearly 2 years, to figure out that something was announced by the government didn't have legislative authority to be deployed.
It had to go through the due legal process to ensure Commonwealth funds could be used for that purpose.
And that due legal process takes nearly 2 years.
That's the length of time it took.
Okay. All right. They do say the wheels of Canberra turn slowly. I guess this has just proven that very point. Look, just as I round out on...
Senator Dunham, I think if you listen to what Commissioner Reynolds had to say, he talked about the very active role ABF has taken with the states. So
yes, indeed. I couldn't dispute that at all.
We would say that we've worked very actively on this.
No, didn't at one point or another dispute that at all. I just thought it was interesting that we announced in January of the year previous 20 million bucks, and it took us a year and 10 months to figure out we couldn't spend it properly. But that is no reflection on the ABF at all, can I assure you, Commissioner. Just out of interest, I mean, I assume both the ITEC Commissioner and the ABF would have staff that smoke. Has any effort been put into ascertaining whether any of the staff who smoke in your organisations buy illicit tobacco or illegal cigarettes?
It would be my expectation, Senator, that no members of the Australian Border Force would indulge in the practice of purchasing illicit tobacco. And if they did, I'd refer the matter to the Integrity and Professional Standards Division within the department.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, I was going to reiterate what Commissioner Reynolds said, but also that there is organisational policies that that stipulate substance use, practices of staff that are not allowed.
Okay, and that includes illegal tobacco?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you very much. If I need to, I'll follow up on that at another time. I mentioned much earlier in the day a reference to tenders relating to health services on Nauru. So that will necessitate a change of officials. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I reckon I'll be done when I'm done. Thank you and welcome back. So I referenced earlier on a tender with the number CN 3913553-A3, which is for the provision of health services on Nauru. I was simply going to ask whether this is part of the overall agreement, the MOU, and any funding that flows from it with between the Government of Australia and the Government of Nauru.
No, Senator, that contract is specifically for our regional processing arrangements. So that contract is with International Health and Medical Services to provide medical support to transferees under regional processing.
Medical transport, did you say?
Medical support.
Medical support, okay. So what Senator Shoebridge was asking about before, with the uplift of health services as a result of funding being provided to the Government of Nauru, that's a separate thing?
Yes, Senator. So the services that IHMS provide are specific to that cohort, and they provide them with specialist health services, primary health care and mental health care, separate to Nauru's own arrangements for their population. Okay, so just to be absolutely clear, we're providing, I think in total at the end of the provision of these various tenders, I think there were 4, it was about $94 million of funding over the course of, I think, 4 different tender rounds. I might have that wrong, but roughly $94 million. That is specifically for the NZYQ cohort. No.
Sorry, who is that for then?
For the regional processing.
For regional processing, okay. And then any funding that flows under the MOU is for the general population of Nauru?
And for the NZYQ cohort.
And for NZYQ, right. Okay, and how do we determine how much funding under the MOU should go for the provision of health services for the general population of Nauru?
Senator, it's a matter, just standing back from the arrangement we have with Nauru,
yes,
in relation to individuals as part of the third country reception arrangement. Nauru is agreeing to take people on long-term 30-year visas to join their community.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving Nauru money each year to support that arrangement to ensure the people they take have appropriate housing, accommodation, and other services to live effectively in their community. As part of that, Nauru is very keen to uplift their services generally, and these will be the services this group of individuals access. But the point I was making to Senator Shoebridge was that these will also be services others on Nauru, particularly the Nauruan community, can access to, which is more likely in the health context, I guess, than in accommodation, where they need to ensure that each of the individuals transferred have a house.
Sure, okay. And so then just for the regional processing cohort we talked about before, what do we have in return for the $94-odd million that's been provided to the Government of Nauru?
So the $94 million, that contract for the IHMS contract is not money that's provided to the Government of Nauru. That is a contract for services between the Australian Government and International Health and Medical Services to provide health services to people who are transferred to Nauru who come to Australia as unauthorised maritime arrivals and are transferred to Nauru for regional processing. So they're quite different arrangements.
Understood. So that runs from 2022 to 2027?
Correct.
Okay, and so that's, what, $20 million a year. How many individuals utilise the services per annum under this agreement?
Senator, it will vary depending on the regional processing cohort in Nauru at any time, but as at 30th September this year, there were 94 individuals under regional processing arrangements. But that
and so the 94 related to what period of time, sorry?
That was as of the 30th of September this year.
30 September.
Final question, Senator Dunning.
Yes, indeed. So 30 September, and just to understand though, I mean, they fluctuate as you say, but are we talking about massive fluctuations of 1,000 people or one or two here and there? And so 94 individuals and $20 million over a one-year period to provide health services to them.
It's also to ensure that capability is there ready for a range of different medical scenarios. So it's about ensuring that capability is constant and stable. So regardless of what the population size is, it can handle that work.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Dunning. Senator Shoebridge.
Well, thanks, Chair. To return to that FOI document, Secretary, you referenced page 3 of the document. You referenced the first sentence on page 3, which, remember, this is the discussion we're having about whether or not the FOI was appropriately responded to, given the FOI decision was made on the 29th of October and then MOU setting out the trust deed had been signed on the 21st of October. You referenced the first sentence on page 3, which says, "I'm satisfied the Department has undertaken reasonable searches in relation to Part 2 of your request and that no documents were in the possession of the Department on 19 September 2025 when your FOI request was received." You referenced that. You failed to read out the next sentence, which rather puts things in a different light, because it then says, "Presently, there is no trust deed that sets out the financial arrangements of the Memorandum of Understanding. As such, I'm refusing Part 2 of your request based on the application of Section 24 of the FOI Act." Secretary, there is no way of spinning this. This decision said that presently, being the date of the 29th of October, that no trust deed or no document that responds to paragraph 2 of that request existed as at the 29th of October. And that was plainly untrue.
So,
one had been signed 8 days earlier.
I'd make 2 points. One is Ms Sharp can take you through the process, but she's just been explaining to me that the decision is made at a point in time and that the decision maker does not go back and check successively so if that's the case, if that's the reason that it was framed that way, this was poorly crafted in the use of the word presently. But the second point I'd make is that we've had very little time to look at this. We haven't been able to talk to the decision maker. I think it's much more sensible if we take our time to understand the document, the basis of the decision, and take your questions on notice.
Well, by all means, but if you're taking my questions on notice, not only did the decision maker in the decision on the 29th of October say presently there is no trust deed on page 3, but also on page 2 said refuse part 2 of your request as no discrete document exists.
Senator, I've heard the question and I've told you that I will take it on notice to look at the document thoroughly and review what's happened.
And again, I think just in case my memory is incorrect, I have asked for you to provide the MOU trust document,
you did, Senator,
deed, agreement.
And we took that on
You've
notice.
taken that on notice. Now, Secretary, in the last round, I asked a series of questions about a series of subcontracts with a series of companies, CanStar and the like, CanStruct, yeah, MTC and the like. In case I said MA Security, I intended to say MA Services. So can those...
We took that as MA Services.
You took that as MA Services? All right, thank you. In replying to question on notice SE 2595, the department said that the MOU that has been signed with Nauru, which you've refused to produce to this committee, does mention the Refugee Convention. You know, I can't verify that because you haven't produced the MOU. Does it require Nauru to comply with the Refugee Convention? And if so, are there enforcement mechanisms in the MOU if that's breached?
Senator, I'll go to the second part of your question first, if you like, because I've given some evidence before about the way the MOU is an agreement of the two parties to implement the third country reception agreement in accordance with what it's, with its purpose. We've set up the trust fund, and the trust fund is there to generate income and support the arrangement for as long as it exists. Australia can withdraw from the trust fund and withdraw the funds if Australia considers that it's not, the third country reception arrangement isn't fulfilling its original purpose. So in effect, we have one very large lever to manage compliance with the trust, and things like compliance with the Refugee Convention would be the sort of thing that we would very carefully consider if we considered that wasn't being complied with in the context of the ongoing viability of the arrangement.
My question was, does the MOU oblige Nauru to comply with the Refugee Convention, and does it have enforcement mechanism in it if they don't?
Nauru has signed up as a sovereign nation to comply with the Refugee Convention. It is not a matter for Australia to try and contract Nauru to do that separately. Nauru is a sovereign state and has signed up itself. Both parties agree that compliance with the Refugee Convention is important, and that's reflected in the MOU. And as I said, if we felt that the purposes of the arrangement weren't being fulfilled, we do have a mechanism in the existence of the trust fund that we could use.
How many people have now been sent to Nauru under this arrangement?
5 individuals, Senator, as of today.
Presently.
Yep.
Of those, how many had been found to be refugees? How many of them had a positive asylum determination?
Senator, because we're talking about small numbers, so less than 5.
No, you're talking about 5.
So it's less than the total, but a number.
Sorry?
So, Senator, when
Some,
we're
but
talking
not
in
all.
small numbers, we consistently, if it's under 5, say less than 5.
Okay.
Mr. Thomas has given you an answer that there are 5 there. Any subset of that 5 is less than 5.
No. Some, but not all of the 5. Is that your answer, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, that's correct, Senator.
Okay. And of the NZYQ cohort, how many are in that cohort?
As of the 30th of September as well, 356.
And how many of the 356, is that who are present in Australia?
That's correct, Senator.
All right, plus
that are on a bridging visa are.
That are on bridging visa are. And in addition, we have the 5 in
Senator, that data that Mr Thomas just gave you for the total number was as at 30 September. The 5 he referenced is as at today. So we're going to have a date issue here.
So we can't directly compare those two numbers, but as at 30th September, 356 in the NZYQ cohort, and how many of them had been found to be refugees?
I don't have the exact number, Senator. I'll have to take that on notice, but it is the majority of the cohort have a protection finding.
You see, Secretary, the problem you have is President Adeang, after you signed the MOU, which apparently references the Refugee Convention, we now know that this is what he said about it in part. He said, the problem now is Australia cannot return them home. These people are what you would refer to as stateless. Their homelands do not want them and they do not have a way to go home. And if over time we have a way to return them home, then of course they will not reach the 30 years. And then he said, to clarify, these people are not refugees. President Adeang was comprehensively wrong when he said, to clarify, these people are not refugees, because the majority of them are refugees, aren't they?
Senator, I think Minister Wong has dealt comprehensively in estimates with the question of the translation of the speech, and I don't have anything to add to her evidence.
No, I'm not asking you about your translation. I'm putting you to a proposition that flows from the translation, the accredited translation that's been provided by the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. It's quite different to what Senator Wong said. You now know, because you've been provided with a copy of the accredited translation, which is obtained by the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, that President Adeang didn't just say it once, he said it multiple times, that the people being sent to Nauru under this deal are not refugees, and that's plain wrong, and it, for me, suggests, well, it says it yells the fact that Nauru is not going to treat them as refugees and is likely to refoul them.
Senator, we've discussed before the Nauruan regulations themselves commit that Nauru will not deprive people of life, impose the death penalty, will not remove anyone from Nauru where there is a risk of deprivation of life, death penalty, cruel or inhumane or degrading treatment, punishment or persecution, chain refoulement. That's written into the Nauruan law. That's the official translation of the Nauruan position.
Great, but in the mind of the President of Nauru, none of those restrictions would apply, because he said clearly, repeatedly to the people of Nauru that, and I quote, to clarify, these people are not refugees. So he in his mind, no refoulement problem, no persecution problem, because he's saying, as the President of Nauru, they're not refugees.
Senator Shoebridge, I don't think it's really fair for you to be asking officials, or for that matter, any representative of this government, to be commenting on the views of another international leader. Senator Wong has made clear already our government's expectations around how Nauru handles these matters, and I don't think it's appropriate to be seeking commentary on the view or the apparent statements of another international leader.
Funny you should say that, because Senator Wong, when I asked her these questions, told me to ask you, Home Affairs. She says this is a matter for Home Affairs. She said it in the Senate just last week. So she says questions in relation to the MOU are all for Home Affairs. Yeah, that's so. Here we are. We have Home Affairs.
So you're verbling again. You have a habit of verbling people. So she didn't say what you just claimed she said, did she? She said.
Why are you pointing?
Because you're the person who's verbling.
Why are you pointing?
Again. Why do you always have to verbal people's remarks? What Senator Wong just said was that questions about the MOU are for Home Affairs, and that's why Home Affairs has been answering questions.
And this was President Adeang talking about the MOU.
Did not say that questions about the President's comments should be directed to Home Affairs. So you should stop misrepresenting what people say.
This was President Adeang talking about the MOU. What bizarre point are you making there?
Are you pointing at me?
What bizarre point are you making there?
I'm really hurt by that.
Your little verbling line.
Please don't
That's
point
what you've got, your little verbling line.
Senator Shoebridge. Minister.
Seriously, mate.
Okay, can we take a breath?
Well, point of order, Chair. It would really assist if Senator Shoebridge could refrain from misrepresenting the statements of senators. That would assist.
Well,
because I will pick him up on it every single time.
yeah, and
Thank you, Minister. Senator Shoebridge,
Yes,
I would suggest that you don't get involved in this conversation.
No, I won't.
And
I won't
instead,
rise to
given
this
we are
pointless
tight on
debate.
time, that you proceed with your questions. If you've got a direct quote from question time that Senator Wong has made that you would like to refer to in response
To be clear, Chair, Senator Wong, when I was asking questions about Adiang's corruption, the MOU said questions about the MOU are to go to Home Affairs.
Thank you.
I'm asking you, Home Affairs, about statements that President Adiang made about the MOU, consistent with the direction from Senator Wong, and you now tell me, no, this is a matter for Senator Wong. Is that what you're telling me?
Senator, we've been doing our best to assist with questions about the MOU for this all afternoon, and we'll continue to do that. I think the distinction is where you're asking us to comment on comments in Nauruan made by the President of another country. It's very difficult for us.
Well, you now have an accredited translation from the ASRC, and it wasn't just once, it was multiple times that President Adiang said that the people being sent to Nauru were not refugees. Now, has anyone from Home Affairs contacted the Nauruan government and said, you are just plain wrong? As we've just heard tonight, the majority of this cohort are refugees. Has anyone approached Nauru to correct the errors made by the President?
Senator, I don't believe we have the translation that you're speaking to, but I will refer to correspondence from Senator Wong to the President of the Senate about the translation that was done.
Totally different document. I'm not referring to that.
Could you let me finish, please, Senator?
Secretary respond. Secretary.
Where Senator Wong says there is no comprehensive Nauru English dictionary. The translation of Nauruan to English is the source of much debate in Nauru. It's very difficult to verify the accuracy of the notes. We cannot give you any answers on the basis of a translation we haven't seen, that we haven't verified. The accuracy was in the absence of the Nauruan government providing its own translation.
Given the time, I'll move on to leaks that appear to have come out of Home Affairs in relation to very, very personal information about the NZYQ cohort. Secretary, on the 20th of September, News.com posted an article by journalist Sam Maiden on a member of the NZYQ cohort. It gave his name, his age, photographs of him, details of past charges, details of his immigration status, and was a vast amount of personal information about this man. I won't repeat them now, that those details, the circumstances will become obvious. Who from Home Affairs gave Samantha Maiden that information?
Senator, there is no evidence that anyone from Home Affairs gave Samantha Maiden that information.
Well, who apart from Home Affairs had the information that was in Sam Maiden's document, which shows a very detailed and intricate knowledge of all of those matters that I assume you would protect this information inside Home Affairs. It wasn't generally available.
So, Senator, I'm not able to add to my evidence.
Well, you see, the person in question was a non-violent offender. I'm not suggesting the offences weren't serious, but they were non-violent offences. And in fact was cooperating with the government, cooperating with the AFP and giving critical evidence in relation to an investigation regarding very, very serious drug matters. That's the truth, isn't it?
Senator, I've responded to you. I have no indication that anyone from Home Affairs provided that information.
Well, you see, the information got to Sam Maiden in some way, but then representatives of the man in question realised that his life was in credible danger because of his cooperation with the police, that he was potentially going to be identified by international crime syndicate, and that if he'd been sent to Nauru, his life would have been in incredible peril. And indeed, having his name and his photograph and his details published in news.com put his life in incredible peril here in Australia. You say that there's no evidence that someone from Home Affairs gave that material to Sam Maiden and leaked the material. Did you undertake an investigation?
We did, Senator.
Did you refer it to the National Anti-Corruption Commission?
No, Senator, because I found no evidence that anyone from Home Affairs had provided that information.
Did you determine whether or not Home Affairs had given that information to some other government agency?
Senator, I found no evidence that there had been any improper passing of that information from Home Affairs.
Thankfully, rapid action was taken by the lawyers, correspondence was sent to news.com, and this information that put this man's life at jeopardy, put the AFP prosecution and investigation at jeopardy, was pulled down from the website. Who undertook the investigation of Home Affairs to see if how this information, all of which was held by Home Affairs, how this information found its way into the hands of news.com to dox and endanger this man's life?
So, Senator, I have already indicated that I do not know how the information came to Sam Maiden. What I have done is asked my Chief Operating Officer to investigate whether or not that information was passed improperly by any officer in Home Affairs, and the answer was no.
Well, can I just ask a final question on this?
If it's brief, yes.
Perhaps you can give on notice details of what avenues of investigation the Chief Operating Officer took, and you can give on notice why you didn't, out of an abundance of caution, given this man's life was at risk, given the information all would have been held by Home Affairs, why you didn't refer this to the NAC and report it to the NAC. Perhaps you could provide that on notice.
I would have thought the answer to that is pretty obvious, given the finding of the investigation.
Yeah. Perhaps you could provide that on notice.
When you undertake an investigation and it doesn't find something, you don't tend to refer it then if you haven't found evidence.
Will you provide that answer on notice, Ms Foster, about the investigation, the details of the investigation that was undertaken by the COO?
To the extent that I can, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Senator Whitten.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some questions for Border Force. And, I'd just like to start by saying I'm a big fan. I support you guys. I would always support the government giving you guys as much resource as you needed. However, I want to just ask some questions about the recent discovery of asbestos in wind turbines that have been manufactured in China. I think it started with Goldwind, a Chinese wind turbine manufacturer, and a major supplier of wind turbines to Australia. What steps have been taken to stop the further importation of goods containing asbestos and specifically the brake pads, I believe, of the wind turbines?
So good evening, Senator. Gav Reynolds, the Australian Border Force Commissioner, and I believe the asbestos has been found in the brake pads on lifts in those wind turbines. The Australian Border Force has been working with the Asbestos and Silica Safety and Eradication Agency and state and territory work health safety regulators to determine who the importers of those brake pads were. What we do then is that we put a profile on the integrated cargo system to prevent any further asbestos containing materials coming into Australia. So we're continuing to work with those state and territory regulators as well as that Commonwealth agency to ensure we understand the breadth of these importations and then to deal with that on the border.
Can you explain to me the process of how these might have come through and not been picked up? Is it something that you don't look for in the first instance until it's discovered, or is there a process for, I mean, there's that much comes across the border that it'd be difficult for you to look at everything, but is there a certain profile for these particular items that we might have been looking for?
So, Senator, the first thing I'd say, it is the importer's requirement to ensure there is no asbestos in those products as they come across the border. It has been a prohibited item since 2003, and there are stiff penalties for individuals and for companies, as it is a Tier 1 good. We ensure that we work with those importers and the customs brokers so that they understand their obligations. Now, it is true to say that there was 148 million air consignments coming into Australia last year and over 7 million sea consignments. If we do have a referral made to the Border Force, or we think a particular importation is suspect, we will pull it aside and we will conduct an inspection of that particular item. But it is possible that if we haven't had the opportunity to pull that aside, that it's clearly got through the border, but that's the importer's responsibility.
Will you be pursuing the penalties against the importers over these products?
So what we do is we continue our investigation, and then a determination on the prosecution is made by the Commonwealth Director for Public Prosecutions.
Okay. Is there any risk that there's more asbestos in the wind turbines that hasn't been yet discovered? Because I'm assuming there's more brake components other than just the lift brakes.
Senator, I think that's really a question for the state and territory regulators who are working on this particular issue. The only item that's been brought to our attention is the brake pads on the lifts in the wind turbines.
And there's obviously been a public safety notice put out about it, has there?
So, Senator, that's not a matter for the Australian Border Force.
Okay. Yep. No, thank you very much for your answers, and yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Senator Roberts.
I was quick. I thought you were going
And sorry,
to...
while you... No, I was going to go to Senator Shoebridge, but he's not in the room at the moment. And while you are getting your papers organised there...
No, I'm right.
I will advise the Australian Institute of Criminology that we're in a position to release you. You go with our thanks. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I can't read your name from the... Mr Reynolds, is it?
Senator, yeah. So it's Gav Reynolds, Commissioner of the Australian Border Force.
Thank you, Mr Reynolds. The constituent says, if the seizures have increased by 38%, what has been the proportion of the total growth in the illicit tobacco market? Has it grown by more than 38%? How do we know that? I mean, compliments to you for the seizure, but how do we know if that's had a big impact?
So it's a reasonable assessment there has been an increase in the amount of illicit tobacco coming into the country. But I'm not in a position, Senator, to tell you what the delta is. So the amount that we get on the border and then the amount that is coming into the country is not a figure that I have for you.
You don't have it?
So, Senator, what I would offer is the Illicit Tobacco and E-Cigarette Commissioner is working through an assessment of what that delta is, and that will be provided in a report to the government.
Commissioner, when do we expect that report?
So, Senator, the Commissioner gave evidence earlier that she was just finalising the report at the moment.
So we should see that soon. Will that report contain an assessment or an estimate of the total illicit tobacco market size?
It will.
Thank you, that's good. How many illegal vapes were consumed in Australia in the last 12 months? I say consumed because I understand some are being made here. Importation figures are less relevant than they are for tobacco. Is that correct?
So, Senator, what I can tell you is that we allowed 1.2 million legal vapes into Australia, and we intercepted 6 million illegal vapes on the border coming into the country. But I'm not in a position to tell you how many illegal vapes were consumed in Australia during the financial year.
Thank you. How many acts of violence were committed in Australia that were directly related to illegal tobacco and vapes? I'm talking about murders, fire bombings, assaults, similar acts of violence, threats of violence. We know from tobacconists that they've been threatened, some have been shut down.
I think that's really a question, Senator, for potentially the Australian Federal Police or potentially the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission may have an answer to that question for you.
Is there someone from the AFP who could answer that, or perhaps the Commissioner could?
The AFP is appearing later this evening, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Does the Commissioner have any idea of that? I mean, you're in charge of coordinating to stop this.
Yes, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, no.
Are you able to get it on notice?
I will do my best to work with law enforcement.
Senator, I think the question is best directed to the law enforcement agencies rather than the ITEC Commissioner, and they will be here later.
Isn't the ITEC Commissioner overseeing everything, coordinating?
She's coordinating the response, Senator, but where there is a specific function like law enforcement, then those questions are best directed to the specific agency.
Question to the Commissioner then. How much government revenue has illegal tobacco taken out of the budget?
Senator, I don't have that figure, and that may be an inclusion in the ITEC Commissioner's report to the government. What I can tell you is that we have prevented $4.4 billion worth of evasion by intercepting the 2.5 billion cigarettes and over 400 tonnes of loose tobacco on the border.
Right, thank you for that. And those figures and the number of cigarette sticks, whatever you call it, that you've intercepted are pretty impressive. But my understanding is that the government has lost about $8 or $9 billion a year on excise due to illegal tobacco coming into the country. So what we need to understand is the size of the overall market, because it's huge, and we also have to understand the cost of the crimes that are being committed to take. We've got criminal gangs working from overseas, as I'm sure you're aware, who are taking over tobacco trade in this country.
Indeed, and I think the ITEC Commissioner has already given evidence, Senator, that report will be provided to government, and that's yet to be forthcoming.
Thank you. I must compliment you on your evidence. You're very direct, which is good. Minister, do you consider the government's very high tobacco duty is the reason otherwise law-abiding citizens are prepared to buy illegal tobacco for generally a third of the legal price?
No.
Any reasons?
There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that argument.
You're joking?
No.
Okay. Minister, is this office designed to make it look like you're doing something to solve a problem your greedy tax grab created and your predecessors?
No.
No data, just meetings, just no. Empowering organised crime, decreasing revenue that taxpayers have to make up, and you just say no.
Well, you asked me a question and I said no.
And I'm asking you, you're ignoring the data, you're ignoring to just put in meetings, you're empowering organised crime and you're decreasing the revenue to the government.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Senator Shoebridge, you're very lucky you walked back in the room. I was about to move on to the next witnesses. Yeah. You have the call.
Thank you. Secretary, I'm going to ask questions about the current conditions that the people who have been deported to Nauru from the NZYQ cohort are in. There are very concerning reports that they are being kept in RPC2 or RPC3, which is the two old detention centres. Are those reports correct?
Senator, I have officers here who are very familiar with this issue.
Senator, I just want to take up two parts of your question. The first was that the individuals are being held. That's not correct. The individuals have freedom of movement and are able and are moving around Nauru as visa holders and able to move freely. So they're not being held. They do have housing provided for them. The housing they are accommodated in is accommodation that was formerly used as an RPC facility. It was accommodation that Australia gifted to the government of Nauru some years ago, and Nauru has repurposed it as community accommodation.
Which RPC are they being held in?
Senator Ms Sharp just said very clearly they're not being held.
Which former RPC are they being held in?
Senator, they're not being held.
Which former RPC are they in?
Their housing is in... which side is it, Ben?
It's RPC 3, Senator.
RPC 3. What changes to the conditions of RPC 3 have been made since the last detainees were removed from RPC 3?
Senator, in preparation for using this accommodation in this way, Nauru comprehensively refurbished it. They put in new carpet, new air conditioning units, new furniture, new fridges, TVs and the like. That was all refreshed in January of this year. The other key difference, I guess, compared to an RPC is the gates are kept open because they have freedom of movement and able to walk freely as needed.
Is the fence with the wire still surrounding RPC 3?
Yes, Senator.
Are the security installations at the gates still at RPC 3?
As in, do you mean like a guard box or?
Yeah, the guard boxes.
I'm trying to think of the side.
Senator, we might take it on notice, but it's not like there are gates that are wide open and people move in and out, and the accommodation, as I said, has been refurbished. It's unit type accommodation. Each person has a bedroom with an ensuite. It's a group of these units, and then a big communal living area with a TV and communal washing living arrangements.
Kitchen facilities.
Yeah, kitchen facilities.
So is it still surrounded by 3-4 metre high wire fencing around the RPC 3?
Yes, Senator.
And in terms of living areas, the living areas are the communal areas from the former detention camp, is that right?
I don't know if the physical area is, it's been completely refurbished. Nobody had lived in the refurbed area in the sense that everything in it was brand new.
Mm-hmm. And these are the prefab sort of portable buildings that were first put in place for RPC 3, those same prefab portable style buildings is the accommodation now?
Yes, it has that appearance, Senator. I just need to check though in terms of the refresh of that facility over time. Just noting your question goes to, was it the original RPC 3 buildings?
Is the accommodation air conditioned?
Yes, Senator.
All of it?
The units that's my understanding. I'll take on notice to check every facility, even the ones that aren't being used, are air conditioned.
You can give any more detail about the circumstances of the accommodation on notice, including are families, are the individuals in separate accommodation? Are they in separate accommodation or are they in communal accommodation, or is it a bit of each?
Each person has their own unit, as I described. There is a communal living area.
All right. Can I ask now about free boats that Home Affairs has been giving out? Have you been giving out any free boats?
Senator.
Waterfoots, do you give away boats?
So it's so juvenile. Honestly.
Do you give away free boats?
So juvenile.
Senator, are you referring to the support vessel program?
Well, I'm just wondering if there's more than one program under which you give free boats away. I'd like to know about all of them. But if you're aware of a program under which you give away free boats, can you tell me what they are? What it
You're
is?
a senator.
Senator, we don't have a free boat program. We have a support vessel program.
Oh, and what happens under the support vessel program?
The support vessel program is a long-standing policy for the procurement of small boats for the use in operations. So it's been in effect now for more than 10 years.
All right. And tell me the details about this program. What happens to the boats?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss the operational detail for matters of operational security.
Well, do you give free boats to people that you've been found illegally fishing in Australia? Is that part of what happens under this program?
No, Senator.
Well, do you give boats to people who have been seeking asylum under this program?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss the operational details in a public forum. You can request a private briefing
I don't
from
want
the
a private
government if you
briefing.
wish.
Multiple sources are reported of saying that boats are given by Border Force to illegal fishers and asylum seekers found in Australia's waters. Are those reports true?
So, disinformation, Senator.
So, well, what happens to the small boats? What do you do with the small boats that are obtained under this scheme?
As I said, Senator, they're used for operational purposes, and I'm not going to publicly discuss those operations.
Are they retained by? Are they purchased and bought by the Commonwealth?
Yes, they are, Senator.
Are they retained by the Commonwealth?
So they're used for operational purposes, Senator.
Are they retained by the Commonwealth, or are they transferred to somebody else?
I'm not going to talk about the operational details of that program, Senator.
Well, I'm going to press for an answer to my questions. If you want to take a public interest immunity claim, you can. Are these boats retained by the Commonwealth, or are they given to somebody else?
Senator, we'll take that on notice and we'll see if the Minister wishes to consider a public interest immunity claim.
How many such boats have been acquired by the Commonwealth for this purpose?
So, Senator, during the financial year 24-25, 23 support vessels were purchased.
All right. And of those 23 support vessels, what happened to them?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss the operational details in a public forum.
How much was spent on the 23 boats?
$7.824 million.
Well, no, I'll put the balance of the questions on notice, given the time, Chair.
I appreciate your assistance in us being able to move to the next part of the program. That means that we are now finished with outcome 3 on the program. Thank you to all the officials for their time this evening. We will take a short suspension while we welcome officers from the Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre. Resume broadcasting, and I now welcome Ms. Miller from the Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre. Ms. Miller, do you have an opening statement?
No, I don't, Senator.
Music to my ears. Thank you very much. We will proceed directly to questions and start with Senator Hume.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Miller. I have some questions specifically around foreign donations to activist groups. In a previous role, I asked a lot of questions about foreign donations to political groups or groups that were engaging in political activism. But I want to better understand whether AUSTRAC is involved in monitoring money flows from overseas, foreign donations, to organisations in Australia that might have charity status that take part in activism that isn't necessarily political activism. So without asking details of who or what, I just want to understand whether AUSTRAC has been monitoring the volume of foreign donations and support that are funding campaigns against particular industries or particular sectors like coal or gas or nuclear or whatever it might be, or any other form of political, any other form of not political, environmental activism.
Thank you for the question, Senator. The intelligence that AUSTRAC holds and the reports that we receive from regulated businesses are used for a range of purposes. We have partners, both domestic and international, in the intelligence community for both national security and in relation to law enforcement. In terms of the sorts of task forces and missions that we are pursuing, I might turn to Dr. John Moss, who is our Deputy Chief Executive Officer for Intelligence. Thank you.
Good evening, John Moss, Deputy CEO Intelligence, AUSTRAC. The two main efforts we have in that space would be our support for the Electoral Integrity Assurance Task Force,
yes,
which we work with AEC and partner agencies, and also the work we do with AFP and Asia in the Countering Foreign Interference Task Force.
So what's that task force called?
The CFI Task Force, Countering Foreign Intelligence Task Force.
Countering Foreign Intelligence.
Interference.
Oh, sorry, foreign interference.
Thank you.
Can you talk to me about the countering, because I understand the Electoral Integrity Task Force, but that would specifically be looking at money going to organisations that are involved in political activity. So talk to me about the Countering Foreign Interference Task Force and what that does to monitor foreign donations into non-political actors.
The work is probably best described by the lead agencies, ASIO and AFP.
Right.
The AUSTRAC role there is to supply access to our financial information and to provide specialist financial intelligence capabilities, which does include monitoring international transactions and working with foreign FIUs, foreign intelligence, financial intelligence units.
Right, okay. So there are obviously these groups like the Sunrise Project and the Environmental Defenders Office that are exempt from disclosing their foreign donations. I just wonder whether AUSTRAC actively monitors those under its own banner or whether it relies on those task forces, or whether those task forces look at those kinds of organisations that are exempt from the foreign donation disclosure rules.
Senator, we don't discuss the actual tracking or monitoring activities. All operational matters,
of course,
are not discussed.
Yes, okay. I probably shouldn't have been that specific. I suppose what I want to understand are activist organisations that are registered charities that are receiving foreign money, that are involved in activist activities, the kind of things that potentially those task forces, either the Electoral Integrity Task Force, which doesn't sound quite right to me, or the Countering Foreign Interference Task Force, are they the kinds of organisations that those task forces would include in their remit?
We're not in a position to comment on that, Senator.
Right. Okay. I'm assuming then that AUSTRAC is not able to comment on whether any of these environmental activist groups received foreign donations during the recent federal election.
That's correct.
Or whether those foreign donations that supported activist environmental groups included money from not just foreign donors, but potentially state actors?
Not in a position to discuss that.
Sorry, can you just say that again, Mr. Dr. Moss?
Can't discuss that, Senator.
You couldn't
the work
discuss
inside those various task forces are best directed to those task forces.
Is it the sort of thing, however, that those would be within the remit of those task forces?
There's a diverse range of subjects in both those task forces. It's best for those agencies leading the task forces to describe those.
Sorry, can you say that again, Dr. Moss?
It's a very diverse menu of work in both those task forces.
Right.
The agencies that lead those task forces are best placed to discuss the menu of work.
Right. Is there anything about this issue that you can discuss with me?
No.
Okay. Can I ask if AUSTRAC has advised government of any concerns that it might have with foreign donations being used to fund activist activity against Australian industries?
All the intelligence we produce for the task forces is referred to the task forces. Financial intelligence is such a small sliver of a broader intelligence picture, so we don't supply government that. It goes to the partner agencies to be worked up into a full and holistic picture.
Sorry, a full what?
And holistic picture.
And a holistic picture.
Yeah.
I know AUSTRAC is a very mysterious agency, but these are very mysterious answers, Dr. Moss. You have very effectively sidestepped where I'm trying to go here. Is there anything that you can tell me about what AUSTRAC does to ensure the integrity of charities in Australia that are receiving foreign donations?
We work closely with those two task forces. We work very closely with the charities regulator, and we pass information to those task forces and that body. We conduct risk assessments of the environment and produce intelligence.
Does that task keep you busy with regards to environmental activist groups?
It's one of many priorities we have in the financial intelligence unit.
Oh, you're good, Dr. Moss. You are good. You are good. All right, let me ask you another question about something slightly different. What exactly has AUSTRAC been doing to help disrupt the revenue of illicit tobacco groups, especially where it's being sent overseas?
Again, we work very closely with our partners, so we are embedded into the illicit tobacco task force that ABF leads, along with ATO and the CDPP. We have 3 staff funded by the task force, embedded in the task force. We also have 2 staff members embedded into AFP's criminal asset confiscation team, which is looking specifically at the illicit finance flows. We also provide staff into state and territory law enforcement strike teams and task forces to assist them disrupt and track money flows. Mm-hmm. We also support the ABF-led National Disruption Group, and we have offshore officers who support those agencies at posts such as in all our locations where we're posted to give a Team Australia disruption effect. And we produce, we take reporting that banks and other reporting entities give to AUSTRAC, work it up to give leads to those task forces.
So with all of that very broad data... Sorry?
Before you I'm just flagging final question before I need to rotate the call.
Okay, no problem. So with all of that great wealth of data that you are looking at, do you have a sense of the size of the criminal wealth that is being sent overseas that's derived from illicit tobacco in Australia?
No, that's the work that the Illicit Tobacco Commission is currently completing and will table shortly.
Okay. Dr. Moss, may I suggest that your next career is in politics? You are very good at avoiding questions.
Why would you wish that on anybody, Senator Hume? Senator Shoebridge.
Thanks, Chair, and nice to see you both. I wouldn't head off for the moment, Mr. Moss, because I'm...
Mr. Moss?
Mr. Moss?
Mr. Moss, you might get a few here too.
You were asked some questions, I think, about funding from some environment groups. series of questions just asked. There are very real concerns about foreign funds being provided to right-wing groupings that are attacking Australian industry. They're attacking our renewable industry. They're attacking anyone seeking to build offshore wind. Like vicious, well-funded, appears to be well-funded by foreign entities, engaging in vicious politics here, trying to attack those critical industries for our renewable transition. Are you tracking funding coming from overseas entities being fed into groups like Advance to destroy those Australian industries?
All our efforts for those task forces talked about before are aligned with the priorities set by those task forces, and I think the questions are best directed to them. Is it part of AUSTRAC's remit to have a look at funds that are coming from, for example, foreign fossil fuel companies, foreign billionaires that are then being funneled into the Australian political space? Is that part of your remit to track monetary flows coming from offshore fossil fuel interests, offshore billionaires into Australian politics? Our remit is to assist partner agencies to deal with money laundering, terrorism financing, proliferation financing and other serious crime. Yes.
All right. What about foreign interference? What, say, if there's a North American fossil fuel company that sees the rollout of renewables in Australia as a threat? What if they're funding, I don't know, let's pick a random group, Advance Australia, to run vicious political attacks against the renewable industry and interfere in our politics? Would that kind of transfer of funds be in AUSTRAC's remit?
We don't discuss the tactical level priorities within the task forces, no, we don't.
But what funds from overseas entities that are coming into Australian political groups, some of them might be registered as charities, some may not, that are seeking to influence our politics for their own purposes, are they the kinds of funds, are they part of the classes of funds that AUSTRAC follows?
All international fund transfers into and out of Australia are reported to AUSTRAC. That's part of the 500,000 reports we receive a day. We have a range of profiles and alerts that monitor those transactions, that create intelligence, that meet our intelligence collection priorities to serve as our partner agencies, and those priorities that are inside our legislation, money laundering, TF.
All right, so if there's a large series of funds going to particularly active political organisations in Australia from overseas, would that be part of what would be picked up in your tracking?
If it was set in our systems as a priority to meet partner needs.
All right. You have a one of the areas that AUSTRAC has prioritised is Pacific Financial Intelligence Community, the Pacific FIUs. That's in your annual report. Is that right?
Yes, one of our missions is Financial Intelligence Unit for Australia.
Yeah. In terms of the Pacific Financial Intelligence Community, does that include the banking system in the Pacific?
Senator, so the Pacific Financial Intelligence Community is a community of financial intelligence units within the Pacific.
Yeah.
Each jurisdiction that is subject to the Financial Action Task Force standards on money laundering is required to have both a financial intelligence unit and a supervisor of those high-risk businesses that need to be regulated to manage the risks of money laundering. Now, in Australia, we are fortunate that we have both of those functions housed within the one agency of AUSTRAC. Across the Pacific and indeed across the world, different jurisdictions will arrange these functions in different ways. So it is quite common in the Pacific jurisdictions where you might have the Financial Intelligence Unit housed in one agency and the regulator or supervisor in another. In addition to the PFIC, the Pacific Financial Intelligence Community, we have recently re-established the Pacific Supervisors Forum, for which Australia, or AUSTRAC, is a co-chair. And we are currently sourcing a co-chair, the other co-chair from a member from the Pacific nations. And that will provide us with an opportunity to pursue what is one of our regulatory priorities for this financial year, which is improving the capability of managing, of regulating businesses that are required to manage their money laundering risks.
Now, Nauru has a financial intelligence unit, is that right?
That is
part
right.
of that partnership? But it doesn't have any AML-CTF legislation requiring the reporting of suspicious activities in Nauru, is that right?
Yes, it does.
Oh, when was it established, the AML-CTF legislation?
I would need to take questions about the legislation of another jurisdiction on notice.
All right.
It is noticeable, Senator, that Nauru was recently admitted to the Egmont group of FIUs, which would require it to demonstrate AML-CTF legislation, frameworks and capability to be an FIU.
Can you identify when they got it? I'm happy for you to take this detail on. Just this year?
This year they were admitted to Egmont.
Prior to that, well, has AUSTRAC been sharing suspicious matters reports with the Nauru Financial Intelligence Unit up until this point?
Nauru is part of the Pacific Financial Intelligence Community. We collaborate on projects. We don't, as a non-Egmont member, we don't have the safeguards to share information with Nauru.
But you said they've just become an Egmont member?
Sorry?
You said they've just become an Egmont member?
Just become an Egmont member.
So are you now sharing that information with the Nauru FIU?
Well, the way FIUs function, Senator, is we have two ways of sharing information. One is by giving requests for information where we specifically ask a question and they respond. You always respond in accordance with the frameworks of Egmont with the bilateral MOUs and ensuring the safeguards around information. The other way is spontaneous disclosures, where you have information that's relevant to FIUs and they can act it, and it's lawful and appropriate to pass on.
Do we have a bilateral MOU with Nauru under the Egmont process?
No, we don't have a bilateral MOU, but because we are jointly part of Egmont, we are connected through the Egmont framework.
Okay, so are we now sharing information with Nauru, suspicious matters reporting with Nauru as a matter of practice?
It's not about suspicious matter reports, it's about sharing the appropriate information that responds to RFIs and spontaneous disclosures under the Egmont framework.
I might ask you on notice to, if you can, provide whatever detail you can about the financial, either the suspicious matter reporting or the other material that's been provided to Nauru under Egmont or whatever provisions were available before Egmont since 2020 to date. And I'm more than happy for that to be on notice, given the time.
On notice.
Yeah. My final question is, there was a significant amount of reporting last week about AUSTRAC reports that I read onto the record in the Senate. I'm assuming that any questions I ask you about those suspicious matter reports and the like, you will take exception to and not provide answers to. I don't need to go through a long process.
Question for the CEO.
Ms. Miller?
The AML-CTF, the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act, does provide a comprehensive regime to protect the information that AUSTRAC receives from regulated businesses, and that includes the suspicious matter reports, the other reports that we receive, and any intelligence reports that we prepare from them.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I could repeat the information, but I'm going to ask you, was the information that I read onto the Senate last week in relation to the financial matters reporting, the suspicious matters reporting from Nauru, is that accurate as far as you know? I'm more than happy if you want to take it on notice and consider a public interest immunity claim.
Senator, the difficulty with a question like that is to be able to comment on the accuracy of a report that may or may not exist necessarily involves confirming
Ms. Miller, I'm not
the content of that.
I don't need to have that. I'm more than happy for you to take it on, consider your response, and if those matters are what you want to put forward in a public interest immunity claim for the government, you can take your time to do that.
We will take that on notice then.
And my final question is this. It's my understanding from a number of media outlets that communication was had from AUSTRAC to a series of media outlets last week, putting them on notice of potential legal penalties should they publish information last week. Did AUSTRAC do that? And if they did, can you please provide to this committee all of those communications you made to
That's
media
not quite accurate, Senator. So what commonly happens is that the sorts of debates and discussions that take place in this place will generate the interest of media, and where our agency is referred to, it is not uncommon to have inquiries from media outlets asking us for comment or asking us for information about it. In response to those requests, we did provide some information to media outlets explaining just what I mentioned before, that there is a comprehensive legislative regime to protect information of that kind, and that some of those provisions do have criminal sanctions attached.
Well, I would ask you to provide to the committee all such communications you sent to media outlets last week.
Thank you.
And I'm more than happy for you to... You obviously won't have...
We will need to take that on notice. I do not have those
Thanks,
documents with me.
Yep.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. That concludes the questions that we have for you this evening. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. We will now take a very, very brief suspension while we welcome our next witnesses. Resume our broadcasting, and I welcome officers from the Australian Federal Police. Commissioner, would you like to make an opening statement?
I would like to make an opening statement if that's acceptable, Chair. Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Senators. It is important I read this statement tonight because we know that certain individuals, groups and organised crime are monitoring the public remarks that are made by the AFP. So I will use Senate estimates tonight not just to inform you of the invaluable work of the AFP, but to send a clear message to organised crime about how we will disrupt their unlawful activities, including the importation of illicit tobacco. Firstly, I will share some of our intelligence on the organised crime groups that we are targeting. Most illicit tobacco imported to Australia is coordinated by a small number of highly sophisticated transnational criminal networks, which have entrenched criminal loyalists and violent enforcers in Australia and offshore. Their complicated web of criminality expands beyond illicit tobacco, and they use similar crime structures and methodologies to import other illicit commodities. Despite their readiness to use violence, including against those who speak to police, the AFP and relevant parties are identifying their criminal structures, their global business model, and how they are leveraging the criminal gig economy through jobs for hire, often taken on by local youth gangs. We know through the work of the AFP and our partners that we are frustrating these criminal networks through our operational tactics and charges. In just one Victorian operation named Tiger Jamaris, the AFP in July 2025 executed 9 search warrants on 3 residential premises and 6 storage units. About 57 pallets of illicit tobacco products were seized, including 5.8 million cigarettes and 84,000 vapes. It is estimated the value of the illicit goods was more than $10 million. This remains an active investigation and further information will be provided at an appropriate time. Since June 2025 alone, the AFP-led Criminal Assets Confiscation Task Force has restrained more than $33 million in proceeds of crime linked to illicit tobacco. Offenders often factor going to prison as part of their criminal craft, but it's the cost of doing business. However, they become infuriated when their illicit profits and goods are seized. We have restrained millions of dollars in bank accounts, gold bullion, cryptocurrency, luxury vehicles, and multiple residential and commercial properties. On Saturday, I returned from the Interpol General Assembly in Morocco, where I had more than 20 bilateral meetings with heads of agencies, including those seeking to disrupt and combat illicit tobacco and other commodities. I held invaluable meetings with the Maldives Police Service about their similar challenges, including with one brand of tobacco that is prolific on the black market in Australia. My bilateral meetings at Interpol also centred on countering far-right groups, extremist groups and others promoting hate. The German Federal Criminal Police Office and the AFP will start sharing intelligence about dangerous groups, undermining social cohesion and successful disruptive tactics that help our communities become resistant to dangerous propaganda. It was also apparent in my bilateral meeting that many countries share significant concerns about youth who are becoming victims and perpetrators through online radicalisation, sextortion and corrupted masculinity. Cruel conditioning on social media and gaming platforms is having a perverse impact on our youth, particularly young men who are viewing violent extremist material that is becoming even more extreme. It is not uncommon to identify misogynistic attributes in offenders who have been radicalised. Desensitisation to violence or dangerous hyper-nationalism at the expense of social cohesion is a significant threat to our youth and our country. The AFP is charging young people who would not normally come into contact with police. The genesis of the start of their criminality is not usually who they connect with or relate to in the real world, but who they are drawn to and manipulated by in the online world. It has been an offence only since January 2024 to use the internet or mobile network to access, share, advertise, promote or solicit violent extremist material and possess or control violent extremist material. Yet since 2024, the AFP has already charged 13 youths aged between 14 and 17 for offences related to possessing or sharing violent extremist material. This is life-changing for these young people and it is entirely preventable. I again urge parents to know what content their kids are viewing online. Hateful ideology in Australia continues to tip into criminal threats and activities. When I first became AFP Commissioner, I revealed the creation of our new National Security Investigations teams. And since their establishment, our National Security Investigations teams have been working hard to disrupt individuals and groups who are damaging Australia's social cohesion and targeting parliamentarians. The team have 41 active investigations, and to date, 8 people have been charged and are before the courts. In the past week, our National Security Investigations teams have executed further search warrants, and we will provide updates on these investigations at an appropriate time. I could not be any clearer. Under my commissionership, criminal acts that erode the country's social fabric by advocating hatred, fear and humiliation will be investigated by very experienced investigators who have world-leading tools and capabilities. Finally, I have some proud news for the AFP to share. In an Australian first, the AFP will next year host the United Nations Chiefs of Police Summit in New York, a biennial summit of heads of national police, ministers and senior government officials from 193 UN member states. This opportunity will allow me to address the United Nations, to amplify the voice of Pacific Islands Police, just as I was able to do at the Interpol General Assembly last week. This is about the Pacific policing regionalism and being able to empower Pacific police to be seen and heard on the global stage. The regional leadership and ambition of Pacific Police Chiefs is clear, as is their desire for regional solutions to our shared security challenges. Over the coming weeks and months, I will be travelling regularly to the Pacific to meet my policing counterparts. The protection and security of the Pacific is a shared priority for the AFP and Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that opening statement and the update of the work of the AFP. We'll proceed to questions and go to Senator Collins.
Thank you so much, Chair. And congratulations, Commissioner Barrett, on becoming the first woman nominated to become Commissioner. And it's really terrific to hear about all the work that you're doing to keep Australians safe, and thank you for everybody for their part in that. Also, congratulations on the Chief of Police Summit next year in New York. That's really exciting news. I just wanted to ask a few questions about it, if that's okay. Can you just please talk us through your Pacific Regional Policing block and the multilateral engagement that you'll be championing through it, please?
Yeah, thank you. I might start this answer and then pass to one of my deputies. But can I say from the outset, the AFP is extremely privileged to partner with Pacific Police, who we work with side by side to keep our mutual communities safe, promote regional security and strengthen the rule of law. And fundamental to that is our approach by the Pacific for the Pacific. So it is a genuine partnership in the way that we go about that. If I can just quickly say that one of my 5 priorities coming in as the new AFP Commissioner is supercharging global operations. And that's really looking at how we fully leverage our presence, our reputation, our capabilities offshore. And another reason why I prioritised my first international travel being to PNG a few weeks ago. Interpol last week was a fantastic time for a new Commissioner. I was able to spend face-to-face time with a lot of different countries. But if I may just talk about the Pacific interventions that occurred in the General Assembly last week, because it is relevant to the regional voting bloc and the regional bloc as you've described. On the floor in the General Assembly last week, a number of Pacific countries made very strong statements about wanting a greater voice in international forums and about the fact that only the Pacific and the Pacific countries can represent themselves in those international forums. It was actually a really powerful moment on the floor, and afterwards we got really strong feedback from a number of other countries about just the strength of the statement and support in terms of what we're aiming to do as a region. And again, as you said, that regional block. Tomorrow we will head up to Pinkenba to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Pinkenba hub, where all of the Pacific Police chiefs will attend, and that's a fantastic opportunity for us to further our strategy around progressing this regional block. And then the UN Chiefs of Police next year, again, will be another world stage where we can really have that strong voice and make those strong statements about why the Pacific needs to be representing itself. But I might just throw to Deputy Commissioner to add any further comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Lisa Gale, Deputy Commissioner, International and Specialist Capabilities. Senator, in addition to the comments of the Commissioner, we would call that what we call the Pacific Policing Initiative. It was first discussed in 2023 by the Pacific Chiefs, where they recognised a need to have specialist capabilities at a regional level, together with a deployable force where the Pacific could support each other during times of need. As a result of that, it was the PPI, as we call it, was endorsed at the PIF, at the Pacific Island Forum, as a strategic response to regional security priorities. And the PPI, which we're very proud to lead in support of our Pacific partners, is underpinned by 3 key pillars. And if I could, I would like to hand to my colleague, who is actually the architect of that strategy, and it would be wonderful for him to have the opportunity to convey the intent of that.
Thanks, Deputy. Nigel Ryan, I'm the Acting Deputy Commissioner for National Security. As the Deputy mentioned, though, my substantive role is as the Assistant Commissioner of the Pacific. The 3 pillars that the Deputy is referring to are underpinned by investment from the government in relation to the Pacific Policing Initiative, and they're 3 distinct pillars that were designed by the Pacific themselves in coordination with the AFP. We've gone through some extensive design phases, and also there's a leadership board which is chaired by the Commissioner David Manning from PNG, but the initiative has been very much driven by a number of the Pacific chiefs who have been very vocal, including the Commissioner from the Solomon Islands, Moston Mangau, and the Commissioner from Fiji, Tindravu, and also the Vanuatu Commissioner Bogram. They've all been very, very vocal in ensuring this goes forward for regional security. But the 3 distinct pillars relate to the Pinkenba hub, which is celebrating its anniversary this week, first anniversary. And that is really a regional coordination mechanisms for the entire Pacific Policing Initiative. There are also 4 regional centres of excellence throughout the Pacific. There is one in PNG, there is one in Fiji, one in Samoa, and there is a further one in Vanuatu, which is, they're currently all underway. A lot of those are infrastructure, bricks and mortar facilities to build capability through the Pacific. And then the 3rd pillar is actually the multinational deployable force, which is the Pacific Police Support Group, and they're able to be deployed at a moment's notice to respond to regional security issues or natural disasters or planned events like the Pacific Island Forum or the Pacific Games, to provide security overlays in relation to that. They have been deployed on a number of occasions successfully. Notably, they were deployed to the Vanuatu earthquake almost 12 months ago, where we deployed to assist for the response to the earthquake. But they have responded on a number of different occasions, and it's very successful.
Okay, thank you so much for that comprehensive answer. I've only got 2 minutes left for questions, so I'm just wondering if you can, whose idea was it for the regional policing block? Does this stem from the PPI? Was that an original idea in the PPI, and that's just an extension of that? Is that correct?
For the regional?
Yeah.
Sorry, Senator, regional...
It has. Well, certainly, Senator, as my colleague indicated, the whole concept has come from the Pacific Chiefs themselves. So the concept around having a regional block is something that they themselves are pushing for.
Okay. And is there any budget expenditure for the for this? Is it going to be new money for the next stage of this PPI?
Yeah, 300.
Yeah, the money was allocated over 4 years. There are actually two distinct elements. One is the Australian Pacific Policing Partnership Program, and the second bit is the Pacific Policing Initiative. One consisted of $317 million, and the second part relates to $417 million. So there's a total money over 4/5 years of about $734 million, which is the investment in the Pacific.
Okay. I understand that we have an MOU with Kiribati on policing. Can I just get an update on that at the moment, please?
Well, you were the last one that signed it.
Yeah, we have been in negotiations with Kiribati for a while in relation to expanding the footprint in Kiribati. Currently, the AFP does not have liaison officers in Kiribati, but we do have agreements in relation to infrastructure programs, in particular rebuilding their headquarters and armoury in Kiribati. And we are looking at doing a scoping mission in relation to the deployment of a liaison officer on a permanent basis into Kiribati. And we do a number of bilateral training programs and capability uplift programs under our agreements to ensure that our friends in Kiribati have the right and appropriate types of training, particularly around operational safety training.
And less than lethal
force.
Options.
Yeah.
One final question. I'll wrap it up in one. Can I just get your assessment of the narco threat in the region, please, and whether the AFP is properly funded to be able to deal with that threat?
For the Pacific?
Yes.
Senator Deputy Commissioner McCartney, Deputy Commissioner of Crime. It is a threat. It's a growing threat, but working with the Pacific Command and our Organised Crime Command, we've established a task force, Operation Thunder, that will have a priority focus, a full court press in terms of criminality that it's carrying in the Pacific linked to organised crime. And that goes across a wide spectrum of offences. Importantly, working with our partners, our great partners in the Pacific in terms of dealing with this threat. So, yes, it is a threat, but I think there's an important initiative and strategy underway in terms of, and the AFP is leading that to address this threat.
And if I can just very quickly quote PNG Commissioner Manning from Interpol when he made his statement, very strongly said, "We in the Pacific must not be held in contempt where criminal syndicates show a blatant disregard for our laws, our people, our sovereignty." I said that was sort of the context of the statements that were made in the GA and the concept behind the initiatives that we're driving around crime and criminality in the Pacific.
Thank you,
Senator. Sorry, the other piece to it, which is probably not as well known, is that there is the Pacific Transnational Crime Coordination Centre that runs out of Samoa and that coordinates the Pacific Transnational Crime Network, of which there are 29 separate transnational crime units that link up across the Pacific to exchange information and deal with threats such as narco-terrorism.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and congratulations again, Commissioner.
Thank you, Senator Collins. Senator Shoebridge.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try and be brief, and I note the time, so I'll probably put a bunch of questions on notice.
Appreciate it.
The first question I might ask to you, Commissioner, is been a number of concerns raised with my office about the time which matters and complaints to the NAC is taking. It's a fairly widely held concern. I wondered if you had any data on the number of matters that have been referred to the NAC regarding AFP conduct and AFP matters, how long they're taking, and the timeliness of the resolution from the NAC.
Senator, I suggest we may need to take that on notice given the level of detail you've asked for. I'll just confer with The Chief Operating Officer.
And what I might do, if you are going to take it on notice then, could you have a look at the timeliness for the matters that have been referred to the NAC compared to the timeliness under the previous ACLI? And if you could go back over the last 5 or 6 years to compare the timeliness, that would be appreciated.
We'll take that one on notice.
And so far as you can, class for class.
Partial answer today, and in terms of how many matters we have referred to the NAC Senator, and then the timeliness, take that on notice. Catherine Van Gert, Chief Operating Officer. So since July 2024, we have referred 26 matters to the National Anti-Corruption Commission. 14 of those were last financial year, 12 of those are this current financial year to date. But I'll take on notice in terms of the timeliness of those matters, noting that many of those are referred back to the AFP for investigation as well.
Yes. All right. But the main thing is time.
Yep.
And if you could compare the two, that would be appreciated. I was going to ask about Aura use. How many times has the AFP accessed the Aura platform in 2025 to date? And how does that compare to, I think, the 365 times the AFP accessed it in 2024?
Sorry, Senator, I missed the start of your question.
The Aura platform.
And sorry, what was the specifics of your question?
How many times has the AFP used it this year?
Again, we might need to take that one on notice, Senator. I'm just looking again at the queue.
Yep, so we do use Aurora in ACT policing, but we'll have to take on notice in terms of how many times we have used it.
Well, what specific functions of Aura does the AFP currently use? For example, they have, I think, ANPR, incident reporting, facial recognition, predictive crime hotspot mapping. What functions are used?
We'll invite our Chief Police Officer up to talk to that, but while he's coming up, I will mention that we did go through the full privacy impact assessment before we commenced use of it and set up our internal standard operating procedures to ensure that appropriate use of it, but I'll pass over to Deputy Commissioner Lee to answer.
Deputy Commissioner, did you hear the question?
I did, Senator. Yep. Thank you. Good evening, Chair, and to the committee. My name is Scott Lee. I'm the Chief Police Officer for the ACT. As the Chief Operating Officer outlined, we do use Aurora within ACT Policing, Senator. So that, I'm just trying to find the data that I have in relation to the use of Aurora. Which should assist you, I think, in terms of the frequency of that use. So the access to Aurora by the ACT Police, by ACT Policing is used for investigative purposes, and that primarily is used by the sharing of information that is collected and provided by businesses and organisations that utilise those platforms. Typically within the ACT, that's for crime types such as assaults and thefts at Canberra's retail businesses. From a policing perspective, it allows us for the efficient sharing of imagery and information from retailers and shopkeepers to police. Prior to the use of Aurora, obviously police were often required to attend those businesses to receive that information, but that can now occur digitally. Within ACT Policing, we have strict parameters and standing operating procedures that manage and guide the use of Aurora by our members. In terms of ACT Policing, there are currently 195 ACT Policing members who currently hold individual user access to the Aurora platform. Of the 195, 164 members have accessed the Aurora platform in the last 12 months. And since May 2025, evidence has been downloaded from Aurora's secure evidence locker on 2,554 occasions. These downloads have been entered by retailers relating to shop theft, violence, or other crime and antisocial behaviour in their stores and shared with ACT Policing.
Has the ACT Police entered any data itself into Aura?
No, Senator. It's used as a mechanism for businesses to share information with ACT Policing.
Does the ACT Policing use predictive crime hotspot mapping from Aura?
No, we do not.
Facial recognition?
No, Senator.
Well, then there is no facial recognition from the 2,554 images?
Certainly what we rely on, Senator, is the imagery that is shared from the businesses with us.
How many occasions has the AFP accessed Aura this year?
As I said, Senator, there's been 164 members that have accessed the Aurora platform in the last 12 months, and as I indicated, in terms of evidence that was downloaded from the Aurora evidence locker, that occurred on 2,544 occasions.
So police accessed it on 2,554 occasions to take data off Aura.
That's right. Into what had been provided.
And is that the only use of Aura that the ACT Police had this year?
That's correct. Yes, Senator.
Right, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Senator Pocock has promised me a very quick little set of questions before we can move on to ASIO. Senator Pocock.
This evening, CPO and Ms Van Gerp, thank you for hosting me in Belconnen. It was great to see what you're doing to keep Canberrans safe and to learn more about SHIELD, so thank you very much. Ms Van Gerp, last estimates I asked you if you could table the guidelines that you have to provide for the well-being of officers under internal investigation, and you took that on notice. And I've just checked the website and you haven't provided a response. I was wondering if that could be provided tonight.
Thank you, Senator. The CON has been completed and we've currently submitted that to the department ready for tabling, but I understand it hasn't been tabled as yet. Okay. I'm happy to outline...
That's all right. I'm happy to wait for the CON.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll take that up with the department. Mr Lee, I wanted to ask about the mistaken arrest of the young Aboriginal teenager here in Canberra, where a teen was arrested at gunpoint. Then officers realised, misidentified, but then subsequently searched. And I understand there's an investigation underway, but I saw that the ACT's Acting Commissioner for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children and Young People, Barb Corson, has made allegations of racial profiling, and she has said that there was nothing similar about the young men involved in this incident other than, and I'm quoting, the same colour skin. Do you expect there to be lessons learnt about engagement with the First Nations community here in the ACT, given the very serious concerns that have been raised?
Senator, that matter, as you've noted, is currently under a number of investigations, and therefore, given that it is currently being investigated, we're not in a position to talk to the matter this evening.
Okay. Commissioner, can I ask if you've been provided with the body camera footage?
Senator, I have not. I am very confident that the PRS investigation that is underway will be done, obviously, very professionally and very swiftly, and also that the other own motion investigation will also be carried out, as you would expect, to the highest levels of professionalism.
And what support's been provided to the family of this young man and him while the investigation's underway?
Senator, again, I might pass to the Chief Operating Officer who oversees our professional standards.
So we do have a range of support services that are available during a professional standards investigation. Senator, our professional standards team have been reaching out to the family through their nominated contacts, and we'll be seeking to offer those supports throughout that investigation to them.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing the results of that. Thank you. I just wanted to ask a few questions on recruiting. And I understand that AFP has some recruiting commitments under AUKUS, and at last count we're about 800 short. Is that correct, or can you give me an update on that when it comes to AUKUS?
Senator, those numbers are not correct, but I'll hand to the Chief Operating Officer.
That's correct. We don't have 800 staff funded under AUKUS at this stage. But what I can say is we do have quite a significant recruit course campaign that's going through our college at the moment. In the 4 months from July through to October, we have had 168 new police and PSO recruits graduate then. Last financial year, we had 298 graduate. So we're continuing to build our workforce in anticipation of that. The funding that we're getting is growing through that period to enable those recruit courses to come on in time for commencement of operations, which is anticipated for 2027.
Thank you. And so just finally, 2027, your requirements under AUKUS are how many headcount, and what's the funding envelope for that that's been committed by government?
Senator, I'll pass to my deputy.
Yes, Senator. Acting Deputy Commissioner Nigel Ryan for National Security. The AFP has been given the responsibility to implement the protective overlay in relation to AUKUS, particularly around Australia's sovereign nuclear-powered submarines capability. We are currently implementing the protective service overlay, and a total workforce of 199 protective service officers will support what we're doing at HMS Stirling, and that provides with a 24/7 coverage, which requires a minimum of 32 frontline members on any shift at any one time across the land and sea. That also allows, that 199 also allows for the extensive training and ongoing training requirements that are needed to ensure that we retain the capabilities required for those protective overlay elements. I would have to take on notice what the actual funding envelope is in relation to those, but we can certainly get back to you on that one.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
I will just add, sorry, quickly, Senator, to keep up with the recruit schedule that we have and make sure that we hit our numbers, we did actually recently start our first recruit course of protective service officers up in Pinkenbar, our facility up in Brisbane, because our college is at capacity, so to keep the numbers coming in. But we continue to attract sufficient numbers for the courses that we need to run.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. And that concludes the questions that we have for the AFP this evening. Apologies we didn't get more time with you. I can assure you there was loads more and there'll be loads more that come to you on notice, I've got no doubt. But thank you for your time this evening. Take a very short suspension while we welcome the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation to the table. Broadcasting. And I now welcome officers from the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation. Director General, do you have an opening statement? And if you do, is it possible for you to table that?
So yeah, Acting Director General,
Yep.
but yeah, Mike Noyes. And yes, I had a very brief statement and I'm happy to table that.
Appreciate you facilitating the committee this evening. We will proceed directly to questions, and I'll start with Senator Duniam.
Thank you, Chair. Very, very quickly. For the limited time we have, I was not expecting to be back here. When would ASIO become first aware that anyone from the ISIS Bride or associate cohort would return to Australia?
There's been, I think when you say ISIS Brides, just to clarify, you're talking about women and children
Yes.
Detained in internally displaced persons camps in Syria. So there have been some of those return at different periods in history. going back several years. I wouldn't talk to specific individuals in that cohort.
Please no, yes. Yeah. But just in general terms, if one is returning to Australia, when would you first become aware that they've reached Australia?
Oh, I see. Well, it'll very much depend on the intelligence picture that we have in relation to those individuals. There's a variety of ways they might emerge from those camps. We won't always be able to detect them, but generally speaking, if they're Australian nationals, and the people that you're talking about are, then they'll trigger border alerts, and that would be probably the latest possible time at which we'd notice. We might not, but we might have intelligence that indicates their movements earlier than that.
Have any arrived in Australia in the last 4 months?
Again, I wouldn't speak to individuals.
We don't know if any have arrived?
No, I'm not going to talk about individual
I'm not asking
cases.
for individual details, but have any arrived? I'm not asking for names of the individuals, but as a cohort that we know exists, do we know if any have arrived in this country in the last 4 months?
What I'll say is, to the extent that those individuals might come back or not, we're in close cooperation with our police partners on managing their return.
Okay, so none have returned to this country?
I'm not saying that, no.
Okay, or that they haven't returned. And so who does the security checks on these cohorts prior to their return?
Well, if you're talking about the security checks in a passport context, is that?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
if that's one of the pathways to do a security check,
Right.
yes.
So on some occasions where an Australian national doesn't have a passport, they will be seeking travel documents to get back to Australia, and there may be a requirement for ASIO to be involved.
Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for your brevity, Senator Dunningham. That's a challenge to you, Senator Shoebridge.
Indeed, bring it home. Thanks, Acting Director General. You'll be familiar with the Four Corners program that ran earlier this year that featured a former ASIO agent codenamed Marcus.
Well, it purported to do so, yes. I'm aware of the Four Corners program, yeah.
I'm advised that former agent Marcus, who had been recruited by ASIO, moved to Australia from the Middle East with his young family to work as an undercover agent until 2023, and as detailed in Four Corners, helped Australian authorities prevent multiple terrorist attacks and deal with extremists and assist some of Australia's international partners to target terrorists around the world. But I'm advised that in 2023, after his cover was blown, ASIO withdrew its financial support for him and his family. He now has no financial support, has no protection. Why did ASIO stop supporting an agent?
So for the same reasons that I wouldn't comment on whether the individual that was put forward as a human source of ASIO, for the same reasons I wouldn't comment, confirm nor deny the identity of any human source. I wouldn't comment on the other details put forward in that program.
What policies does ASIO have in place to ensure that human sources, as you call them, who have been used by ASIO, when they cease being of use to ASIO, are actually protected? Basic things like financial support, ensuring their identity is protected. What's ASIO's policy in that regard?
I'll answer that question. I just would like to make one final and further comment in respect to the Four Corners program. There was an insinuation, I felt, in that program that at one point ASIO had information or intelligence relating to attack planning or a potential violent threat and wasn't acting on it. I did find that offensive, and so I just would like to put that on the record.
Well, if you're going to put that on the record, to be clear, that former ASIO agent, who you won't confirm or deny, codename Marcus, told Four Corners that he'd repeatedly warned ASIO about a potential attack on Sydney Bishop Mari Emanuel almost 2 years before it happened.
Yeah,
that was the position he put.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just say, without going into the detail, the idea or the notion that ASIO would sit on threat information and not act on it is just not my experience in all the years I've been in the intelligence community.
Was ASIO put on notice of the threats to the Bishop?
I won't go into the details. I'll just say that we act on threat information when we have it.
You were going to tell me about the what, if any, policies ASIO has in to ensure that human sources aren't, basically put in the dustbin when they're finished.
Yeah. Well, we don't go into huge detail about the way we manage our human sources for quite obvious reasons. I will only note that there is a huge amount of effort goes into looking after the welfare of our human sources.
What was the individual who eventually attacked the Sydney Bishop? Were they being monitored by ASIO in the lead up to the attack?
My recollection is that that person came to our attention on the night of the stabbing.
Right.
If I'm incorrect in that regard, we'll notify you of that, but that's my recollection.
Well, the information that's been provided to me, and I think some of it was covered in Four Corners, was that the individual had been closely monitored by ASIO for many years, and indeed that person, who is described as a former ASIO agent, and you don't confirm or deny, asserts to have infiltrated the assailant's network and as a human source for ASIO. Is that true?
Sorry, that the perpetrator of the attack against the Assyrian bishop was someone that had been on our radar for years?
The preacher who was in contact with the assailant. The preacher who was in contact with the assailant and as part of the radicalised group.
Right. Look, it's not unusual for us to pay attention to people who are vocal in the community on issues that might be seen as controversial, and so without actually recalling the details, I can't say that that isn't true. Yeah.
You see, the former former ASIO agent, codename Marcus, who, and I accept you're not confirming that, has made a quite detailed statement that he repeatedly warned ASIO about a WhatsApp group chat, via a WhatsApp group chat, about members of a group who were calling for the killing of the bishop since 2022. That's a very specific allegation, that repeatedly warned ASIO using a WhatsApp group chat. Are you saying that's just not true?
Yeah, I guess.
Before you respond, Mr. Noyes, I am advising that we are at the hard marker of 9 p.m. So once you conclude your response to this question, we will end tonight's proceedings.
Thank you. I think the key word there is allegation, which reminds me that this is a matter before the courts, and so I'll finish my response there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Apologies, we did not have more time to ask some further questions from the committee this evening, but you did get to appear tonight. So thank you very much.
No, thank you.
You go with our thanks. That concludes today's proceedings. I thank the ministers and departmental officers for their attendance, as well as Hansard Broadcasting and the Secretariat for their assistance. Can I ask a committee member to please move the acceptance of documents tabled throughout today's proceedings? Thank you, Senator Cox. I also remind senators that written questions on notice should be lodged with the Secretariat by 5 p.m, Thursday the 11th of December 2025. The hearing is adjourned.